Better picks, better takes, better MMA. We are coming back at you guys with UFC Denver Fight Night picks. Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez going down this Saturday, July 13th. We are going to start it off with the main event. You guys know that I don't like making picks for WMMA fights, but I'll give you guys a quick pick here, given the fact that Tracy Cortez is stepping in on short notice, and this will be at Elevation in Denver. And Rose Namajunas has trained at Elevation in the past and is more used to fighting 5-round fights. I was feeling like Tracy Cortez might be able to out-wrestle Rose Namajunas, but I think as this fight goes 5 rounds, Rose Namajunas should be able to pick apart Tracy Cortez. So I'm actually going to go with Rose Namajunas getting a 5-round decision. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Muslim Salikhov. This is going to be a must-win fight for both of these guys here. Both of them are coming off of some losses in their careers, and they need a bounce-back fight. Santiago Ponzinibbio has some good boxing hands, but Muslim Salikhov is always very dangerous with his kicks. He may be able to finish Santiago with a kick to the body here, but I do think Santiago will be more aggressive with his hands, and I do think he will be able to close the distance with his takedowns. So I'm going to go with Santiago Ponzinibbio getting the job done at Elevation. Moving on to the feature fight of the night, Drew Dober versus John Silva. You guys know I am a huge John Silva fan. I love his personality. I love that he barks so much. But John Silva most definitely belongs at 145 pounds. Drew Dober is going to look massive in comparison to John Silva once they get into the octagon together. And though I do think John Silva does have a puncher's chance in this fight, because Drew Dober is now 35 years old and he has faced some knockout losses in recent history, perhaps we could see John Silva crack the chin of Drew Dober, but I don't think the chances of that are very high. I think Drew Dober is going to overwhelm John Silva with not just his punching combinations, but perhaps some kicks to the body as well. So I'm going to go with Drew Dober getting a first or second round knockout, most likely in the first round. I don't like the fact that John Silva is taking this so short notice. He's looking to earn some money after he missed weight fighting Charles Jourdain. So I don't like the motivations for John Silva in this fight just being to get a quick paycheck, because I think he's biting off a little bit more than he can chew with Drew Dober. Moving on to Gabriel Bon-Fermin versus Anheliger. I'm going to go with Gabriel Bon-Fermin, either getting a first or second round TKO, because Bon-Fermin does have some very good hands. But if Anheliger decides he wants to engage in the grappling, and if he goes for a takedown on Gabriel Bon-Fermin, I'm very confident that Bon-Fermin will be able to get a guillotine or a submission on the ground. So I'm looking for Bon-Fermin to get a finish here, either by knockout or submission in the first or second round. Moving down the card to Julian Arosa versus Christian Rodriguez. Now, this is a very, very tricky fight for me, because a lot of people are expecting Christian Rodriguez to go in there and work Julian Arosa. Christian Rodriguez's only loss in the UFC has been to Jonathan Pierce, who has about the same frame as Julian Arosa and is also at 145, which Christian Rodriguez is being forced to move up into because he has continuously missed weight at 135 pounds. I don't think that this is a good weight class for Christian Rodriguez, but he does have a good skill set on the feet. He's trained by Duke Roufus, and as we know, he has some dangerous submissions, and perhaps he could submit Julian Arosa here, but I'm thinking that Julian Arosa will do a good job at keeping this fight on the feet, and I think we're going to see them bang it out, and I think we're going to see Christian Rodriguez lose in a bit of a different way here, and he's going to get the pressure put on him by Julian Arosa when they're standing on the feet. I think Julian Arosa has some underrated striking when he gets going, and against a shorter opponent like Christian Rodriguez, that's typically where you get to see Arosa use his best tools, like his teep kicks to the body, his flying knees. So I'm going to go with Julian Arosa upsetting Christian Rodriguez and getting the victory here, either by a decision or a third round TKO for Julian Arosa. Moving on to the main card opener of Abdulrazak Alhassan versus Cody Brundage. This is another great fight. Abdulrazak Alhassan, one of the hardest pound-for-pound hitters in the UFC right now, if not in UFC history. If this guy hits you clean with a hook or a head kick, it is night-night. There is no chance that you are surviving a shot clean from Abdulrazak Alhassan. On the other hand, though, Cody Brundage, though he is sort of clumsy, not really the best anywhere technically, he is a very, very scrappy wrestler. He has some decent wrestling at that, and I do think he will be able to secure his hands behind Abdul Razak Alhassan and bring Abdul Razak Alhassan to the ground and smother him with some dominant wrestling and perhaps get himself like an arm triangle submission in the first or second round. I could see Cody Brundage doing that. Things that make me want to fade Abdul Razak Alhassan here is that he has the frame and build for 170. I don't think that it's a good idea for Abdul Razak to be fighting at 185. Maybe the cut to 170 is just too hard for him, but he's just too small for 185, and I think that is going to favor Brundage's wrestling immensely. And other than that, Abdul Razak Alhassan seems like he's coming in with a lot of emotion that he's looking to let out into this fight, and that could either be a very, very good thing or a very, very bad thing in a fight. I like Abdul Razak Alhassan. As a fan, I would love to see him get another highlight reel KO. But I'm going to go with Cody Brundage either by winning a dominant decision via his wrestling or getting a first or second round submission. Moving on to the prelim headliner, Joshua Van versus Charles Johnson. Now, this is the hardcore fans' main event, I think. You know, these are two of the most underrated prospects in the flyweight division right now. To give Charles Johnson his respect, he is a former LFA champion. He is an absolute workhorse, taking so many fights in the UFC in a short amount of time, really showing that he's here to work. He's going to be a mainstay of the flyweight division for quite some time. Joshua Van, on the other hand, is a 22-year-old prospect. And from what we've seen, he is very, very scrappy, and he is a volume puncher. He will walk you down with a high guard, and he likes to let his hands go with hooks to the body and hooks up top. Mainly a lot of body work from Joshua Van. And though I do think Charles Johnson is a very good striker in his own right, I think Joshua Van's hands and the way that he mixes up from the head to the body will seriously start to bother Charles Johnson as this gets to the second and third round. Charles Johnson likes to switch stances a lot, and oftentimes when he's switching stances, especially as he gets tired, he oftentimes gets caught because he has his hands low, and so it gives an opportunity for his opponents to track down his head and really start gaining a momentum on him. Fighters like Jake Hadley, who are bottom feeders of the division, aren't able to do that. But somebody like Joshua Van, who really works on building momentum as the fight goes on, I see Joshua Van winning the second and third round convincingly. So I'm going to say Joshua Van wins the decision 29-28, or Joshua Van gets a third round TKO. Moving on to Montel Jackson versus Damon Blackshear. Another fantastic fight on this prelim card. Montel Jackson is a phenomenal prospect. He has some of the most impressive statistics in the bantamweight division, not just in terms of his hand size, because he has some of the biggest hands in the division, but he has also got some great takedown defense, and he also gets knockdowns in almost every single fight that he's in. Damon Blackshear, on the other hand, though, has shown that he can handle himself with some very high-level competition like Mario Bautista. Some would say that Damon Blackshear even beat Mario Bautista. I would say the round that really determined who won that fight between Blackshear and Bautista was that second round. But what Blackshear showed was that he has a very, very dangerous ground game. He's proven that with his twister submission, and he also proved it with a very, very tight triangle choke. But Damon Blackshear, I think the tides will turn for him. Montel Jackson, though he is very physically talented and he is a good technical fighter, I don't think he necessarily has some of that finishing instinct, and he relies a bit too much on his physical advantages. And I think Damon Blackshear, with his own athleticism, will begin to close that gap on Montel. Montel Jackson will not be able to handle Damon Blackshear in the grappling and defend his takedowns as easily as he has been able to with his other opponents in the past. So I'm actually going to go with Damon Blackshear getting a hard-fought 3-round decision. It's going to all rely on him mixing up the takedowns and getting working on the feet. Montel Jackson is quite low output alongside Damon, so I think they could match each other in the volume, and as long as Damone secures some takedowns and attempts some submissions, I think that will help him pull away and win this fight. So I'm going to go with Blackshear, another underdog on this card. Moving on to Josh Fremd versus Andre Petroski. This is a battle of the bottom feeders of middleweight. Andre Petroski, one of the most coin flip fighters that we have in the middleweight division right now. I'm going to have to go with Petroski simply off the fact that I do believe he will be able to secure takedowns on Josh Fremd here. Perhaps Fremd could catch Petroski in a guillotine, but that's about the only danger that I see Petroski being in this fight. And if there's anybody that Andre Petroski will feel comfortable standing with on the feet and will be able to clip on the feet, it will be somebody like Josh Fremd. Josh Fremd does not have the best boxing defense, nor is he very dangerous on the feet. So Andre Petroski, he will feel comfortable on the feet, and I'm sure that will help him set up his feints and his takedown attempts. So I'm going to go with Andre Petroski, either by a 3-round decision or a 3rd round submission. Moving on to the card opener, Evan Elder versus Darius Flowers. Darius Flowers is a short notice replacement fighter. He's shown to be a gamer and he's shown to be dangerous at moments, but Evan Elder, I think, is the more experienced, well-rounded fighter. He has some dangerous strikes on the feet, he has some good takedowns, and it seems like he has a good idea of how to mix those things up. Darius Flowers, I think, is just going to be one step behind in this fight. He's typically very, very reactionary. When he was up against Jake Matthews at 170, he looked dangerous up against a guy like Jake Matthews, and then up against a guy like Michael Johnson. You would hope to see that Darius Flowers would start to really let the hands go and really start to impose his will, but it was not the case for Darius Flowers on that night. This is a very short notice fight, so it's hard who to pick here, but I'm going to go with Evan Elder getting the decision. Well, thank you guys so much for staying to the end of the video. I really appreciate it if you guys did. Please like and comment and subscribe to the channel. Betr MMA, always giving you the better picks, the better takes, and the better vibes. You know what we do. We out. Peace.